Oh, I see James is in the chat. Says I'm here now, having audio issues. No audio issues. I just decided to try something different. Where I just got right into the drawing, didn't do the intro, and just started sketching and going. Um, so this is a continuation of the fan art I started last week from Jim Luhan's character John Henry Unicorn, and just doing it in kind of the style of like a Raphael like church angel painting, even though he is so ridiculous con artist. Jim says, "I hope you sell this on eBay for $150,000." I'm like, oh, I'm creating a unicoin. It's gonna be my next big Bitcoin rage. It's gonna be the John Henry Unicoin. Get in on the ground floor now. Become a foundation member. I mean, what's interesting here is that really, I realize I've never been a guy who did speed painting, and I should be looking at some speed painting tutorials. There's a concept artist, Anthony Jones, who I watch, and he's been doing like live streams where he'll do like a 10-minute painting. And it might be rough, it might be, whatever, but the whole point of it is that he spent, years doing incredibly beautiful detailed art, to the point now that he can crank out a sketch in 10 minutes that's, it may not be, it's definitely not the level of like his finished production pieces, but he also has a lot of pieces he does that are just sketches just for communication or getting ideas across or just developing and spitballing. And the stuff that he does in 10 minutes is just as good as any of those. So I realized, I still struggle with drawing and painting as quickly as I'd like to, or as well as I'd like to, regardless of speed. But it might be worth me looking into just taking a quick class on digital painting. Just to kind of develop a mindset for how to crank through pieces. Because Jim, you work incredibly fast, like insanely fast, and I find it rather intimidating, to be honest, because I feel like if I were to give you a rough sketch of what I was thinking, you could sit down and in about 30 minutes do the finished piece of what I'm sitting here and rendering and re-rendering and sketching and changing proportions on, and like you just get down to it. And I think I need to develop the get down to itiveness. Let's see here. James says, okay, this is coming along. I see Dylan in the chat. Hi, Dylan. This hi to Jim and everybody. And Gary Hodges in the chat. Morning, everyone. Morning, Gary. You know what I was thinking about doing? Even though I have a Discord server for patrons, I was thinking about creating a section with a voice channel just for this live stream and having it kind of like a radio call-in show where like anyone who logs in to the Discord is muted, but then it's like people can come on and just for the regulars who show up for the live stream. And what'll happen is, just so it doesn't turn into chaos, just kind of unmute one person at a time. So that way, the same way everyone's up in here and we're making comments and chatting, I can just unmute someone. They talk for a little bit. We chit chat. And then, whoops, no. Then, go back to mute, put on the next person. Make it kind of like a little talk radio experience. So, I mean, I'm not saying I'm definitely going to do this, but it was one of the things that I was just spitballing, thinking about in terms of how do, I don't know, just make this a more engaging experience. And also thinking about the fact that a lot of times, I'm stopping and starting to throw comments on the screen. And having the conversational aspect with people just talking might both save me from having to, stop and start on doing that, and let me just keep drawing while I'm talking with you guys. So just something I was thinking about. I don't know if that's something anybody else would be interested in or not. Let's see here. James says, I was asking about originality last week. I've been thinking about originals and remakes since I watched the recent Wolfman movie a few nights ago. I suppose it qualifies as a remake. I didn't mind having a modern feel, but I didn't find the characters that interesting. Well, I haven't seen that Wolfman movie yet. I mean, hell, I haven't even seen the Jack Nicholson Wolf movie, the movie that was just called Wolf. I haven't even seen the original Wolfman, I don't think. The new one I think you're talking about, is that the one with Benicio del Toro in it? Well, I mean, my overall thoughts are, well, basically you kind of said it there, and that you didn't find the characters that interesting. Not having seen the movie, my general reaction to stuff like that is that the challenge with anything, whether it's original characters and new characters or existing characters, is that you do a interesting job with them in terms of creating characters that people want to follow, see how they're doing, where they're going. Like I was looking the other day at movie posters for Spartacus, because I was thinking about that as inspiration for logo design for my next comic, because it's a Greek mythology story. And it got me thinking about how, even though I haven't watched the Spartacus TV series, it's one of those that people rave about. And that is very much a reboot, a remake, but they made it with characters that people cared about. So I feel like the issue of having characters that people don't resonate with and aren't interested in following, that's a completely separate issue. And you could mistake that for a reason why reboots are bad. But I feel like the bad or uninteresting character is it's a separate issue. It's a separate problem. Let's see here. Dylan says a first-time caller, long-time listener for the talk show idea. Let's see here. And James mentions for Wolfman, he says Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner. I have not heard of either of them. All right, I guess I definitely have not heard about this one. Well, I'll have to add that to the list of stuff that I want to see. Still have not seen Nosferatu yet. However, I did go see Sinners last week, and woo-wee, that was the hotness. That was exactly what I was in the mood to go see. I'm trying to remember. I'm like, did I talk about Sinners last week at all? Because I feel like I'd already seen it when I did last week's live stream. And I honestly, like, the whole thing is a blank to me. I can't remember whether I brought it up or not. But if you have not heard, it's the Ryan Coogler vampire film that Ryan Coogler of Creed and Black Panther and Fruitvale Station fame, with Michael B. Jordan from all of those fames as well. And they brought like more than a game. They brought like their AAA game. It was a fantastic film. It was a journey into, like, it was horror, but it was very spiritual. Like, it was almost I think it would be reasonable to consider it's partially a musical, because there's music throughout, and music plays a very, very important part in both the characters' lives and the experience that they're going through. It's kind of like a blues musical horror, almost like a a black Sweeney Todd for with vampires. I've never seen Sweeney Todd, so I don't know. That might be a horrible comparison. Oh, Jim says Leanne says hello, his lovely wife Leanne. Tell Leanne I said hello as well. I hope that she's doing well. You guys are having a nice Sunday. Dylan says, I watched Wolf last year with my dad for the first time and found Wolf a little boring. Well, you know what? I guess that, I mean, I don't, if obviously it's been out for a long time. If it was high on my list, I would have gotten to it sooner. Maybe I won't make it as big a priority. If anything, I'm interested in seeing the Benicio del Toro film just because I like Benicio del Toro. And he's one of those guys where not every film he's in is great, but he's such an interesting actor that I just enjoy watching him. So maybe I'll watch that instead of the new one or the Nicholson one. I mean, I don't remember it getting great reviews, but much in the same way that I was like, oh, well, I want to check out the Benicio del Toro. I just thought, Nicholson playing a werewolf. That could be interesting. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Gary says, I'm going to try and see Sinners this coming weekend. It does not disappoint. I did not, unfortunately, see it in IMAX. There are no IMAX theaters near where I live now. But, you know, I have a friend who did go see it in IMAX, and they had seen it. They'd seen it twice. They'd already seen it in a regular theater screening first. And they said that they enjoyed the IMAX, but it didn't really change it that much for him. So I don't know if the IMAX is really a must-see experience. I would have seen it if it was possible to see it in IMAX. I would have seen it up here, but you know, review I got from one friend so far was just like, eh. So take that for what it's worth. Let's see here. James mentions there's a few different versions of Sweeney Todd. Dylan also says, cool, Gary. I hope you enjoy it. I want to see it too. You know, Sinners. And Jim says, Wolf of Wall Street is another scary werewolf movie. Scary in a different way. Yes. You know, actually, I really enjoyed Wolf of Wall Street. And I think it was a breakout film for Jonah Hill because he really was acting his ass off in that. And it was just such a weird character that he played. I mean, I know that not everything Scorsese does is a 10, but I thought it was an interesting film just in terms of him doing stuff a little bit different from the normal crime drama we're used to. I mean, I am remembering correctly that Wolf of Wall Street was a Scorsese film, right? I mean, definitely it was a lot more lighthearted. And even though it did involve crime, it was a lot more lighthearted and quirky than the usual Scorsese fare. So let's see here. A little velvet banner. Covering up a little modesty here. You know what? Let me change. I have a brush that is the exact same brush that I'm using, but it's set with smoothing turned on, like on high, so that when I draw a line, it'll automatically smooth out. So I have a brush that's designed to assist me in making long, smooth strokes. Like if I do that with the regular brush, I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the same line, but me doing it with the regular brush in comparison, you can see how much more wiggle there is in there. Whereas with the smoothing brush, it's helping me out. Cleaning up the line. I mean, I generally only use that if I have like long arcs that I know I want to make in a particular image. But for something like this banner, I feel like that'll come in handy. Let's see here. It looks like we're going down the werewolf rabbit hole. Dylan says on the DVD for Wolf, it says it was groundbreaking, and it wasn't. However, it's been like 30 or 40 something years since it's been out. Well, you have to remember they've got to put whatever they need on the DVD box to sell the DVD. They're going to tell you it's groundbreaking, even if it's ground beef. That said, I'm trying to remember if there was anything about it that was revolutionary when it came out. I don't think so. I mean, there are some movies, like when you look at James Cameron's Avatar, regardless of whether you like Cameron's films in general or not, it was a very groundbreaking film. I don't know if there was anything groundbreaking technology-wise in Wolf that I can remember. Let's see here. Jim says werewolves are the best monsters, says 10-year-old Jim, which Gary co-signs. 10-year-old Jim is correct. You would be a shill for Luhan. Damn you, you're in the pocket. You're bought and sold by Big Luhan. Let's see here. Herman's in the chat. Hey, Herman, good to see you. Says, what's good, G and peeps? I also hit the like button coming in. Hope everybody's having an excellent day. You know what? Think of that. That's the like button is the doorbell for the stream. You come on in, click that like, then make yourself comfortable. Grab a drink, put your feet up. Go ahead. Let's see here. Now, James says, I haven't seen Wolf in a while, but I remember liking it. And Dylan says, I love Del Toro's version. My mom and I love the scene where the doctor gets impaled. Well, spoilers, because I ain't seen that shit. No, I'm just kidding. I don't care. No, but it is good to know because I really, my memory of the reaction to that when it came out is vague, and I don't remember it being, oh, it's garbage, but I don't remember it being, oh, it's fantastic either. Honestly, I mean, the last werewolf movie that I really enjoyed was a werewolf vampire movie, Underworld. And I know it had multiple spin-offs and sequels and stuff that took the franchise in different directions, but the original, the very first Underworld, I still think that's a fantastic movie. And I can see why it got all of the spin-offs that it did, because that movie, I think the world building is fantastic, and they very much earned the idea of spinning this off into multiple stories about this ongoing feud between vampires and werewolves. I mean, not only that, I feel like Underworld is a movie that still has steam in it. I don't feel like the franchise should be done yet. And I know that the original was written by Kevin Grievous, the actor who played the big black werewolf. He's an actor, screenwriter, producer. I don't know if he's directed, but I would love to see him direct a werewolf-centric entry in the Underworld franchise. And you know what? That may already exist because, like I said, I've only seen, I saw the first two Underworlds. I don't think I saw the third one. I think that there's like two more that are like direct to video or direct to streaming, whatever they are. But that said, that would interest me as well. Let's see here. So we're getting like the list of all the top vampire movie. Oh, wow. Gary says, I saw Wolf in the theater when I was a teenager, and what was revolutionary to me was seeing Wolfman James Spader attempt to do Michelle Pfeiffer doggy style. Well, I mean, it's a werewolf movie. What other style you expect him to come at? Well, hell, I mean, well, now I'm a little interested, a little tantalized. It just got bumped up like a notch higher now. I mean, does that make me a perv? Perhaps, but I gotta live with that. I gotta be that guy. I gotta own it. Um, let's see here. And Jim says the OG Wolfman and American Werewolf in London are two of my favorite werewolf films of all time. Uh, what I will add to is for me, American Werewolf in London probably is my favorite werewolf movie. That then Underworld after it. And while I don't remember the original black and white werewolf, what I did watch as a kid and have fond memories of was Michael Landon in I Was a Teenage Werewolf. That's one that I could also stand to go back and rewatch. That was a nice classic 50s B movie horror film. And it was funny because I think that at the time I saw it, it was shortly, I think around the time that Highway to Heaven had just started. So it's like we were used to him being the Little House on the Prairie guy. And then I'm seeing him as this werewolf. And I'm like, what? I think that, back in the age when you're young enough that your mind is blown the first time you see an actor do something that's different than what you have known them to be. I mean, now I kind of look forward to that. The most interesting thing for me is to see actors playing against type. There we go. I think I need to smooth out these corners right here a little bit more. Let's see here. Oh, hey. Yeah, Gary says OG Wolfman, American Wolf in London, Silver Bullet, and The Howling are probably my faves. Now, The Howling I have seen and I have no recollection of it. It didn't make a dent in my brain. I don't remember it. But Silver Bullet, that was, I mean, I don't know if I would call it a classic, but I was intrigued because of the fact that it was a Stephen King screenplay before he had done a lot of screenwriting. And the fact that the book version had been illustrated by the late, great Bernie Wrightson. So yeah, that's one that, I mean, I remember the movie just being all right. Wasn't bad, wasn't great. But I think just the fact that I was cheering for seeing Stephen King getting to write a screenplay, I was like, yeah, go on, do it. All right, let me see if I can get this curve to something pleasing. All right. I think that'll work. All right. Let's see here. Herman says to Dylan, I hope you're doing well, bro. And Dylan says, I'm all right. A little tired because of things. How are you doing? Saying hi to the rest of the gang in the chat. Dylan says, love Underworld. Good. Happy to hear it. I feel like that was one of those, like, it was a movie that punched above its weight. Like, it was a solid B movie that gave, like, A- level performance in terms of, like, It was a good, solid genre film that really, engaged people. That was my opinion of it. And Herman also agrees, says, yeah, Underworld is a classic. Actually, 1 and 2 were great. That might be why I have such fond memories of it, because 1 and 2 are the only ones I saw. I do have to look in and see how the others did. Let's see here. Herman says The Howling is still amazing looking to be an old flick. Says part 2 was nasty. Said it didn't seem much like a monster movie. Was it nasty because it was like, wolves getting their hump on, or was it nasty like it was just gory and it wasn't even like a fun film? I don't know. See, now I am interested in going back and revisiting The Howling. Although, to be honest, what if anything, these are the things that are on deck for me to watch right now. I really want to see The Wild Robot, because that's streaming finally, and I want to see both that and that movie with the animals on the ship, Flow, the one that won. I think that's the one that actually won the Academy Award for Best Animated Film, but it's a film without dialogue. It's just animals kind of surviving and depending on each other. So that is probably the other thing that I want to watch. And then I have, since we've been talking about it for ages, I finally want to get into seeing Nosferatu. So those are kind of what's on the top of my list right now. But that said, I do want to go back and watch The Howling because I have no memory whatsoever of it. Let's see here. Dylan says, I watched Silver Bullet multiple times during October. I got the novella that inspired the movie. It's called Cycle of the Werewolf. It has fantastic art pieces in it. I'm almost done with it. That's Bernie Wrightson that I was mentioning. I got a chance to meet him at a very small comic convention in Pasadena years ago, and I bought a sketchbook from him, and it was one of those like photocopied little ash can size sketchbooks that a lot of people were selling in like the 90s and early 2000s. And I remember like he was selling it and it was something ridiculous, like $5 or $10. And I'm looking at him all, you're Bernie Wrightson. I'd pay $20 for this. I mean, hell, I don't know if I'd pay 50 because I didn't have a lot of spare cash. If I had spare cash, I would have commissioned a sketch from him. But but it was one of those where I was just like, this dude's a legend. And I was just grateful to be able to get something from him. May he rest in peace. Let's see here. Let's go with a slightly cooler temperature because I always try to cool colors off when I do shadows. All right, now I can just come in here and the door to my studio is like cracked, and one of the cats just sort of I left the door cracked because I figured the cats are strong enough that they can push the door open if they want. But one of them, she sort of poked her head in and was like, what's going on there? But didn't push the door open. So I don't know, which leads me worried because whenever they look in and then go back out, that usually means shenanigans are on the way. And if you're a cat owner, you know that shenanigans are a way of life. They're looking forward to any opportunity to bring the shenanigans. They shenanigan hard. All right, I wonder if it's time for me to switch from the smoothing brush back to my regular brush to finish this off. see here. Herman mentioned from The Howling. Says I think Dee Wallace from Cujo was in The Howling as a news reporter. Huh. All right. You know, and I remember seeing Cujo just as a kid at a stage when I really was not like I would watch some horror films. Like I was just getting to that age where I was getting over my scaredy cat phase. Because for the longest time, I could not watch horror at all. Um, I was a kid that slept with the lights on until like the fifth grade. I was very much a scaredy cat because I have an overactive imagination. And then, you know, I think like a lot of kids, I had that tipping point where I wanted to understand why I was afraid and not be controlled by my fear. And I started watching horror films. And I mean, I wouldn't even say that I am a huge horror fan. I like horror films. I think a lot of them are interesting, but I wouldn't say I'm a huge horror fan. I'm mostly like a sci-fi, fantasy, and weird. I'm a fan of weird stuff. So when it comes to horror, you know, for me, I like stuff like David Cronenberg, Videodrome, and I have not seen Brandon Cronenberg's films like Crimes of the Future. And did Brandon Cronenberg direct The Substance? Um, Point being is, I am a fan of trippier films like that. I haven't made time to see them. Like Infinity Pool has been on my queue to watch for I don't know how long. But I like weird horror, not gory horror. Stop talking for a second because I'm trying to figure out what it is I don't like about this shape. See, this is the thing, the perfectionism is like I'll just be making a shape and be like, huh, that shape doesn't look right to me. Then I'm just in there pecking around trying to get it just right. All of the stuff that I sketched in super quick, and I'm sitting here like painting ribbons. That's what I'm obsessing about. I'm weird like that. All right, let's get back in here. Oh, Herman says Silver Bullet was okay. These are all things for me to come back and revisit. You know what I think was really fantastic was I know they're remaking Salem's Lot, but damn, that original Salem's Lot, that kept me up. And I have not seen the um the prequel that I think was on like Stars or Epics. I think it was like Chapel White or something like that. But it's a Adrian Brody thing, and it kind of had Midnight Mass vibes to it. But it's one of those that if I can just buy it separately on Amazon Prime or something without having to subscribe to something else, I'd watch that. Or if I can rent it. All right, so Jim is up here for a sharp left turn. He says, quick question for the G crew. What's your favorite movie about an artist who paints? Favorite movie about an artist who paints? Truth be told, I haven't really seen a lot of movies about visual artists. Um, I saw Pollock and I enjoyed Pollock. That's really the first one that pops into my mind. I have for a very long time wanted to see Vincent and Theo, that movie about Vincent van Gogh. And I want to say it's Tim Roth either plays Van Gogh or plays Van Gogh's brother. But the movie's just about their relationship and how his brother tried to support him through his career, through all of his madness and mental illness issues. Um, I'm trying to think. What else is there? I want to say that Ken Mora isn't he working on a film on Caravaggio based off of his graphic novel? Because I definitely want to see that. Um, but trying to think films that I've seen that are about artists who paint. Uh, hmm, hmm. I'm having a hard one with that one. I'm sure that I've seen movies besides just Pollock, but Pollock is the only one that comes to mind. Now, in terms of books that I've read, my favorite is probably The Agony and the Ecstasy about Michelangelo. That one is fantastic. Let's see what anyone else has to say because my answer was woefully uninteresting. Maybe you guys will jog my memory. Let's see here. Gary does say on Silver Bullet, he says it was really good aside from the sort of dopey werewolf design. It did kind of look like a rented Halloween costume. Um, before we dive further into the artist movie question, does anybody remember in the early days of Fox, before it was really a network, when like in the very beginning of Married with Children, there was a show on Fox called Werewolf, where Chuck Connors wasn't the main character, but he played this old, gnarly, grizzled werewolf, and he was like the lead werewolf. And the whole story, it's just real. It's basically it's the fugitive with werewolves. This guy gets attacked by a werewolf, gets turned into a werewolf, but then he finds out that the one way to break the werewolf curse is to kill the werewolf that turned him, and then he'll revert back to being a normal human. So the whole story is him trying to find Chuck Connors. He's kind of like the big bad in the ongoing series. But it's one of those things where he just travels from town to town to town, getting into weird adventures, finding people. It's very much like, in fact, I mean, I've never read Werewolf by Night. I did love the Marvel Halloween special, but I've never read Werewolf by Night, the comic. This feels like this probably was ripped off from Werewolf by Night because it's just a guy traveling the world, traveling the road, trying to find the person who turned him. Anyway, I loved that show. That show was probably one of the big pieces that got me into horror because it was scary, but I couldn't really turn away. So I'm just curious because it's one of those things where I never hear anyone else talking about that show, but I loved that show. It was so good. Well, again, that's another one that like I was watching it when I was a kid, so who knows how good it actually is. I am always prepared to be proven that my memories of how good something was before the age of 20, all bets are off. Someone could say, I'm like, that was awesome. Like, that was crap. My lips are getting a little bit chapped. Got a little chapstick on there. Dylan says to Herman, "You're hurting my heart." Saying Silver Bullet was okay. Gary says, Jim, I'd say at Eternity's Gate, the Van Gogh movie starring Willem Dafoe. Oh, Jim also says Basquiat. So first off, at Eternity's Gate, I'm going to star that because I need to go look that up. I love Willem Dafoe. I've never heard of that movie. I'm going to check it out. Now, Jim also said, you see Basquiat? Yes. I enjoyed Basquiat. But the fact of the matter is when I see a movie about, another creative person who just, shat their life away because of addiction, because it's an ongoing pattern. It happened in Pollock, it happened in Basquiat. It's something that obviously there are a lot of artists who have addiction issues. I felt like the acting in Basquiat was great. The movie, the performance of it was great, but I didn't necessarily. I don't know. I think that it's more that the way that Basquiat ended up made me sad, and that's not a fault or criticism of the movie. That's more of who knows what that brother could have got done if he had just gotten some help. Like I wish he had lived and continued to make more art. That's more of it. That you can't fault the movie for that. Um, Dylan says Van Helsing is another great movie. Um, I didn't. Again, I haven't seen Van Helsing, so I don't know how much of a werewolf movie that is because I always thought it was a vampire, a vampire movie. And Gary is throwing down the gauntlet here, just bar none. He's just like all Howling sequels are bad. So okay, I'll take that one. Let's see here. And James says, I've seen the first Howling and the third one. He says Howling 3 is bizarre and rather sexual. Well, let's see. Well, now I'm torn in two directions. It's bizarre and sexual? Oh, I'm going to have to watch it just to decide for myself. Let's see here. Dylan says, I reckon a movie called The Cursed. It's a really cool and unique take on the werewolf movie. Is that a Christina Ricci film? Because I think I vaguely remember that as well. And Jim says there needs to be a werewolf painter movie. How about an animated werewolf painter movie? Jim, what do you say? Gauntlet thrown. So Herman says, back in the day when Fox started as a network. Oh, see, you were already there. That's what happens when I'm too slow with getting caught up to the chat. Herman says, Fox started as a network. They had a werewolf series, and Chuck Connors from Gunsmoke. He says, yeah, Howling 2 seemed like a lot of nudity and sex. Didn't seem like scary. Yes. And Gary also co-says on that. I remember the Werewolf series. I think it was just called Werewolf. And James says, I was thinking about sketchbooks too. I have a Michael Dooney one that I found at a recycled bookstore in San Jose. See, that's nice. You can always find like these little treasures at different bookshops. If anyone ever is in the LA area, there is a used and rare bookstore in North Hollywood called Iliad Books. And I tell you, it is worth your time to stop in and visit if you're ever in the area, because they have like, I think because of how close it is to like movie studios and a lot of great comic book shops, because it's in LA, they have like an amazing collection of art books, film books, animation books, graphic novels. Like you'll go in there and you'll see like a whole run of like, I don't know, Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead for like $5 each or like $7 each. And you'll go in, you'll walk in and you'll end up spending like 50 or $60 because the books are such a great deal that you're like, I can't pass this up. And you just end up buying so much. It's an amazing bookstore, and it's one of the things that I had to stop going there very often because it is a big reason why my wife and I own too many books. I could not set foot in there and not walk out with at least, here's the thing, $40 worth of books is like a big like shopping bag worth of books there. So I would just go in and just you keep going, oh, this is amazing. This is amazing. I want to read this. I want to read that. It's a great place and I highly recommend it. Let's see here. So this is actually looking not bad. Let's just get in here and I'm going to work on John Henry Unicorn's face. Let's just work on his face here. Well, I should go and take another look at the comments real quick, because I think when I go in here into the face, it's probably going to take me a few minutes to get situated and block that in. Let's see here. Herman says, sorry, Dylan, about Silver Bullet. Maybe because I saw it when I was younger on cable, but I haven't seen it in possibly 25 years. It's been a minute. And Dylan says, I just found that Werewolf series on YouTube. Dylan says, it's all right. Maybe give it another go. Just checking in on you like a parent. In terms of the cats sticking their heads in the door, James says, I have feral cats that hang out around my house. And it's like they're just waiting for you to feed them so they can never leave. They're going to be like gremlins. Let's see here. Herman says, I still sleep with the lights on. Well, a little one. It's a lamp. Yeah, well, we have night lights all around the house, but like the small ones you plug into the wall. But that's mainly just so that we can navigate from room to room whenever we walk into a room that the lights are out. It's not pitch black. So we're not falling over furniture and crap. Let's see here. So Dylan says Van Helsing was the first movie where I wasn't scared of the werewolf. He says, I think the design was great. Well, I mean, you say that the design was great, but here's the question. If the design was great, shouldn't you be a little bit scared of the werewolf? I wonder. I do have an idea for a short werewolf comic book. I don't know when I'll get around to it. Obviously, the list of things, the to-do list is long and looming. But someday, I hopefully will get to do that. Let's see here. And Herman says, wow, you remember Videodrome? It says, what about Scanners? Have you seen that? That was weird and gory, shocking horror. Yes. I've definitely seen Scanners, and it has been a long time. And that is also sort of that vibe of like weird sci-fi that is kind of in my wheelhouse. Let's see here. Let's stop talking for a second while I'm trying to figure out how to block in this figure. I gotta bring the sunglasses up a little bit higher. Some construction lines I'm gonna have to erase. I'm gonna have to figure out how to draw this chin from this angle. Oh, let's see here. James says Coraline Farget made The Substance. I haven't seen either of her movies, but Cronenberg is an influence of hers. Well, you know what? It's interesting because I could definitely see the Cronenberg influence on that film. And again, The Substance is another one that I have not seen and has been on my list. So let's see here. Dylan says, I heard the New Salem's Lot wasn't that good, but I haven't watched it myself. Um, James says Basquiat may be my favorite, but I haven't seen that in forever. And let's see here. Herman says, I can't think off the top. John Baptiste, the guy who played the Black Commissioner Gordon in Batman, he played a young, struggling drug addict artist. I can't remember the actor's name, but in the 90s. Let's see here. Maybe that is Basquiat that we're talking about. There, yeah. Jim confirms that that's Basquiat. Yeah, and Herman says, "Yeah, gee, once you get through the comments I mentioned, see now we're doing the meta thing where I'm reading the comments about me talking about comments that I hadn't gotten to yet." Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, you were definitely ahead of the curve, Herman. Thank you. You get dibs. You win on that one. I was late to the game. You beat me to the punch. Um, Dylan says there's a poker deck based on Basquiat's art, and oh, Herman says that was a young Jeffrey Wright that played Basquiat. What? What? Okay. I could see that. I mean, he definitely looked more like Jeffrey Wright. I was prepared for it to be the guy that Jim was talking about, but Jim, see, you're talking nonsense. Herman's in the know. Honestly, knowing that it's Jeffrey Wright and knowing how much I like Jeffrey Wright as an actor, that makes me want to go back and rewatch Basquiat now. Yeah, Jeffrey Wright is one of those guys who I'm mad that I don't have time to watch every single thing he's ever done. But I mean, from American Fiction to Basquiat to Westworld to the James Bond movies, um, like everything that and he's one of those guys who if it's a good role, it doesn't care whether it's a big role or a supporting role, or him just showing up in a scene. Like he comes in and he kills it on like everything he does. Let's see here. Oh wow, I was really behind on the comments because Dylan says here, I'm just getting to where I mentioned the Cursed, and Dylan says it's confusing because the Christina Ricci movie is named Cursed, but this other movie is named The Cursed. Let's see. He says I didn't like Christina Ricci's movie when I was a kid because the dog was a werewolf. I watched the last half of the movie last year and kind of enjoyed the movie. Well, you know what? Things come around. Over time, you can learn to appreciate stuff that you maybe did not care for. And Neon Dabo in the chat says cats are our leaders. Thank you for joining us, Neon Dabo. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It's good to have you in the chat. Thanks for joining us. Um, I barely remember. Speaking of cats, there was another Stephen King adaptation called Skinwalkers. And it was not a very good movie. I will tell you that up front. It was not very good. But I believe that it was sort of like aliens that were cat-like creatures that could change. It was more that they were not human, but they could take human form, as opposed to humans that were turned into creatures. Um, I bring that up because it was a bad movie, but it has a interesting premise that I think would be worth rebooting. I wouldn't mind giving it another try. Give him the big ass forehead. I'm trying to get that receding hairline to go right off of the top there, so that from this angle, it really does look like he's bald because the part of it, his hair that part of his head that has hair on it would be disappearing at this angle. I need to make his glasses a little bit wider. And his nose a little bit longer. I'm gonna have to play with his proportions a little bit more. Because right now he's looking kind of like Clint Howard right now. Yeah, I think that if I just make his nose a little bit longer, that will do the trick. Although actually what I can do is take advantage of the fact that I'm working digitally and just take this whole section of the face and just slide it down a little bit more. Now, see, it's challenging because I want the foreshortening of looking up at his head so the nose would be shorter, but I don't want to bring his nose down so far that it breaks the illusion that you're looking up at him. So it's kind of like I don't want to bring it down as much as I was going to before because I realize I still need to keep that perspective of looking up. And I can take the little dimple in his chin and move that down a little bit too. Centered and down. I'm going to come back to the comments in a sec. And you know what? I'm not asking you to do this, Jim, but I am genuinely curious how long, if you had started, like if you had been given just the rough sketch that I started with on this, like how long would it take you to just sit there and just knock out the finished drawings? I feel like you would do that shit like greased lightning. It'd be something crazy. Let's see here. Yeah, I think we're getting to the point in the stream where I just leave artwork up and talk with you guys for a little bit and read the comments. I don't know if I'm going to have time to get much more done on this today. Let's see here. Herman says, man, I got my old school mom into Walking Dead. We watched the whole series and a few of the spinoffs. She has her picks of characters. She loves Daryl, Carol, and Dog. Or Carol and Daryl. Hey, that was all a good and interesting crew. I never watched Walking Dead all the way through. And the reason for that is because even though, things are very different in terms of Shane staying on the show longer, I had read probably like the first 7 volumes of the graphic novel, which takes us all the way up through the governor and his whole saga. So the whole time I was watching it, like my wife was watching it, and I kind of walk in the room, watch a little bit, walk out of the room. Like I was like, all right, it was more like keeping an eye on where they're at story wise, but I didn't feel the need to watch every episode. And then, by the time it got up to where it was past what I had read, it was such sort of a different thing that, like Daryl isn't even in the comics. At least I don't know. Maybe they added Daryl later on, because he was so popular on the show. But I will remember that there was an episode where Carol was with a couple of girls, and one of the girls killed her sister. And it was such a heartbreaking episode. I was just like, this show is just depressing as shit. I can't do this. I ended up letting that go. And I watched the episode with Glenn's death. and I watched like other episodes here and there throughout the series. And that is not to say that I am crapping on The Walking Dead, because I loved the comic. I think the TV show was very, very well done. It's an excellent show. Um, I think it's just one of those things where I only have but so much time to watch anything. And I was like, because I was familiar enough with it from the comics, I was willing to sacrifice that as part of my viewing schedule. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a great show. Obviously, it's got a great legacy. Um, I didn't they do a new series just recently with Michonne and Rick coming back now. So I mean, hopefully that did well. I mean, I want the show to do well and be successful, even if I'm not watching it. Let's see here. James says Scanners is a bit slow paced. I'm partial to Videodrome and The Brood. Now I've never seen The Brood. That's another one that's on my list. And Scanners, Videodrome, I own that on DVD because it was such a weird movie and it made such a strange impact on me that I was obsessed with it as a kid. It was one of those where it was something that scared me, yet I couldn't look away. Scanners, I've only seen, I think, once, and it's so long ago that I'm probably due for a rewatch. Maybe this is one of those things where what I can do is while I'm drawing, like not during the live stream, but just while I'm on, I can just put on movies that I either haven't seen in ages or have been meaning to watch and just let them play on a screen while I work. That might be a way to catch up. Let's see. Herman says, just start Hard Shadows and Glaze by bringing opacity down some. I can't even remember what point we were talking at when this comment went up. Probably while I was working on the shadows for the ribbon. Dylan says, I think the werewolf just seemed cooler than scary in Van Helsing. Well, that's fair. And hey, stick figure to Kim Jong-yi says, sup, Jeremy? Hope things are well for you. It's me, Vaughn. Hey, good to see you, man. I like you've got. I was trying to say, who is that in your avatar as Villapoo? I like that. That's a nice, nice shot of him too. Although he's got like a weird, like in front of a chain link fence thing going on. But that's pretty cool. Good to see you, man. Let's see here. Oh, Gary says Wright killed it as a Puerto Rican gangster in Shaft. See, and I don't even remember that. And I know that I have seen the Sam Jackson Shaft movie, but that was another one that at the time I saw it kind of like went in the brain, went out the brain. It didn't last. But let's see here. James says there's a black and white version of Basquiat. I'm not sure how I feel about that, knowing that Basquiat did his work in color. Well, I mean, that comes down to, if you're doing that, I feel like it's more about the intent of the director, and they're choosing to focus on the journey of Basquiat as a person, as opposed to just making it a movie about his art. Because I've also seen a documentary on Basquiat that was very good. And that was, again, that's putting his art front and center. I don't necessarily have a objective problem against a movie about an artist where the movie shot in black and white, because they're telling a narrative story versus a documentary. Do you lose something by not seeing the colors of Basquiat's work? I would say yes. But the question is, does that overshadow what you gain narratively in a black and white film? And I feel like I am not enough of an expert on Basquiat to know whether you really lose something by doing that. And also, I've seen the color version. So it's like the idea of there being two versions, that doesn't bother me. It's like, if you don't like it, just don't don't watch the black and white version. It's like with Godzilla -1. I've only seen the color version, but people have gone back to the theater specifically to see the black and white version, which sounds dope to me. And I think I could watch the black and white streaming now. But I mean, I have this whole ambivalence about other people's creative choices. Like, I don't really have an opinion of, oh, this is good, this is bad, they should have done this, they should have done that. Maybe it's selfish and self-indulgent, but I'm have my head too far up my own ass, worried about my own creative decisions to really give a shit about what other people do. I'm like, you want to try something and it ends up being a disaster? Fine, I don't care. You know, you can try something and maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Honestly, I am more in favor, and I think you guys have seen this by the way I make art. I'm more in favor of trying something, knowing that it could be a disaster, just to see what happens. So for better or for worse, I'm like, go ahead, make a black and white Basquiat film. See if anybody likes it. Herman says, right. When I watched Basquiat, I was like, man, he looks just like Jay Wright. They said, right. And I was right once I watched the credits. He was putting in work, man. What a great actor. He plays, yes, he does play the Watcher on Disney's What If, and that's a nut. See, everything he does. And I know that in season 2, the Watcher plays a more significant role. I only saw the first season of What If, but I do want to go back and watch more at some point. I mean, I don't want to watch the whole series. I just need to make time. And I know that season 3 is uneven from all reports. But again, as somebody who says try shit and see whether it works or not, I'm like, eh. Oh, this is something. I'm curious if anybody has seen the trailer for the Bungie video game marathon that's coming out later this year. Because there's a gameplay trailer, but they have a cinematic animated trailer that was directed by Alberto Mielgo. He did the Windshield Wiper, which I think he won an Academy Award for, an animated short. He did Jabari on Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix, and he did another one. There's another, but the point is he's done a lot of great animated films. And I will tell you, I have gone back and I've watched that because it's like an 8-minute film as far as a cinematic trailer for the game. I can't play first-person shooters, so I have no investment in it in terms of, oh, this makes me want to play. It does make me want to play the game, but it makes me angry that I can't because I know that I will just throw up. But that cinematic trailer is like one of the best animated films I've seen in ages, which just goes to show that you can create great art even when the goal is you're just hired to make a piece of advertising for a video game. But he made this beautiful, kind of haunting science fiction animated film. I highly recommend if you just type in marathon cinematic trailer and look that up on YouTube. You know what? Go ahead. Go watch. I'll still be reading the comments while you go, and by the time you get back, I'll probably just be wrapping it up. Go watch that. But anyway, I am curious to see what you guys think, because I love that. That's something I watched recently that, along with Sinners, made a big impact. Dylan says, I think the movie Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is underrated. You know what? I'll take your word for that. It's not high on my list. I mean, there's so many other things that I really want to watch before I watch Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Maybe it is underrated, and hopefully someday I'll get to it and I'll be like, wow, Dylan was right. But I don't know. I'm not going to get to it soon. I mean, the name alone is so ridiculous. Let's see. Dylan's saying hi to Vaughn. Oh, yeah, when we were talking about me working on the face, Herman says, bring his nose outward to the side. That may help. Well, see, no, here's the thing. I don't want the nose out to the side more. What I want is the foreshortening of you're looking. What I want is that I want you to see you're looking up at his head. Putting his nose to the side will just make it feel like it's, well, it will destroy the foreshortening, because that's the thing. If I have it to the side, then you're just looking at a profile of a long nose. It'll actually do the wrong thing. What I need is I needed to make his nose longer, but when you make someone's nose longer in a foreshortened position, you can only pull it down like you can't pull it down as far as you would do. So I did shift it over a little bit, but if I were to pull it out significantly, it would break the angle that I'm trying to create. Let's see here. Herman says Daryl was the best character. Considering his upbringing, he turned out to be the one guy that, regardless of color, you could depend on and literally call him a brother from another mother. Yeah, I mean, everybody loves him some Daryl. I never. You guys tell me, because like I said, I only read like the first 7 volumes of the comic. Did they ever bring Daryl into the comic book? Because he seems like somebody that you could bring into that world and just give him his own series. Like he is absolutely the Wolverine of Walking Dead. Dylan says, for Jeremy in the chat, what are your opinions of The Lost Boys? He says, I didn't like it as a kid, but I'm thinking of possibly watching it again. The Lost Boys for me was another turning point in terms of me starting to like horror, because it was light horror, but not like heavy, gory horror. And it was one of those movies. I think it was the first quote unquote horror movie that I chose to go see in the theaters by myself without my parents. Like me and a buddy of mine went to see it. And it's one of those things where, I look at it as it is a bridge between like Goonies and Fright Night. It's like it moves you into horror, but it still has the feeling of young kids having an adventure in terms of like, the Frog Brothers and and Corey Haim, being there, like the whole thing of like the young kids having this adventure of like local vampires, draining people. I mean, I feel like it goes along right alongside Scott Serklin's Young and the Dead. Like, I feel like Lost Boys would be a good companion piece to that. So my opinions of it are that it's a very enjoyable movie. It's not as scary as hardcore horror movies, and it definitely has comedic aspects to it. There's things that are funny and silly about it. But I like it. I have fond memories of it. It was a very transitional movie for me in terms of getting into horror. Let's see here. Yeah, Herman says Lost Boys was pretty solid, but I'm thinking I hope because nostalgia is my reasoning, so I may have to revisit it again myself. Yeah, I would definitely revisit it. I mean, I have seen it since it came out in theaters, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. And again, that's another one. People a lot of times are like, why make remakes when we've got a perfectly good original film? But I think that kids watching a vampire movie right now with the technology we have, just simply because society changes and because you take the actors that are the popular teen actors now versus the popular teen actors when we were kids, I think that reason alone is enough to make a remake. If you take a movie that's more than 40 years old, I don't spend a lot of time talking to teenagers these days, but I feel like most teens are not interested in watching 40-year-old movies. And as adults, we think of the movies that when we were kids were 40-year-old movies, they're now 80-year-old movies. Black and white. I can't imagine asking a teenager to watch a black and white film. Or at least like it'd be rare to be the kid who would actually be interested in them. That said, there's still great black and white films that I haven't gone back and seen. I mean, I've obviously seen the Alfred Hitchcock films, but I want to go back and watch like his entire catalog of movies. The first James Bond movie, Dr. No, black and white. I have seen it, but I haven't seen it since I was a kid. And that's worth going back and re-seeing. And probably the first 3 or 4 Dr. You know what? By the way, I read the novel of Casino Royale for the first time, like this past month. Makes a lot more sense than the actual movie did. Like it explained like the actual reason why they're in casino and gambling in a spy movie. It made no sense to me in the film. And then I just listened to the audiobook, which is very short. It's like maybe 6 hours. And it's like, oh, that makes complete sense. They're just trying to bankrupt a corrupt guy who's part of a criminal organization. Dylan says, I still wanted to see Godzilla -1 in color in theaters, but couldn't. And James says, people have said the black and white version of The Mist is great. Usually have the opposite effect when you go from black and white to color. Yeah, I'm trying to think because honestly, I know that there's a few movies I've seen that came out in color first and then they made a black and white version, but I can't really think of a lot of other ones. Godzilla was the only one that popped into my head. I didn't even know that The Mist had a black and white version, but that absolutely sounds like that is worth going back and watching. I might do that. Let's see here. Herman says, I have Godzilla -1 on stream. Have to watch it again. Let's see here. Dylan says, I've been rewatching Godzilla Singular Point to see if I still have the same opinion. And I thought it was too sciencey and mathematical. See, I'm not. What's crazy is my ringtone is Godzilla, but I am so I'm not that deep into it. I think that the place I was working at the time when I got a new phone, they were making Godzilla toys. So I just I'll make Godzilla my ringtone. I just didn't know what else to make it. But honestly, I've seen the Raymond Burr Godzilla. I've seen maybe one or two of the old Japanese ones that were subtitled in America. I have unfortunately seen the Matthew Broderick one, and then I've seen Godzilla -1. Oh, you know what? I haven't even watched all of the one with Bryan Cranston. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but everyone said that those last couple of ones are really good and worth checking out. And I want to say that I've seen Godzilla versus Kong, and it just sort of I enjoyed it, but it was another one. A lot of movies don't stick with me, and that might be. I don't know how much of that is the fact of my brain actually absorbing material as well, or how much of it is that, not many movies reach that bar of having a lasting, deep impact on a person where they think about it and it stays with them. I do feel like a lot of movies, a lot of entertainment in general is disposable in the sense that you experience it, you maybe enjoy it, and it's kind of like junk food. It fills you up for the time, but it doesn't stay with you. It doesn't become nutritious, doesn't become something you come back to. I feel like that might be true for a lot of the Godzilla films. So I feel like I've seen some of the contemporary Godzillas. They didn't really stick with me. Herman says, wow, you get motion sickness with first-person shooters. Did you see that Sandra Bullock space movie in 3D? I felt nauseous. That 3D was amazing in the theater. Gravity, yes, I did see Gravity. I loved Gravity. I didn't see it in 3D, so I didn't really have the problem of the nausea. But I could see that movie giving people motion sickness because you have all these shots of you like you're above the earth and you're disoriented and spinning around. Even if you're not seeing it in 3D, I could definitely see that movie having that same effect. And Hossein is in the chat. Hey, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. We're just in sort of the Q&A phase of the stream, just going through. I've already drawn, I think, all the stuff I'm going to draw for today. Let's see here. Dylan says, OMG, Herman, I saw Gravity in the theater and will most likely never see it again. Now, I am curious, Dylan, whether you didn't like it or whether it just made you sick, because I loved Gravity. I thought Gravity was one of the best science fiction thrillers I'd seen in a long time. It is literally everything she does, space is just trying to kill her. And even at the very end, if she died at the very end, you'd have been real pissed after everything she had been through. But even at the end, you're like, oh my God, she's gonna drown. After everything. I loved that movie. That is something that, you know what, that movie stuck with me. That's a movie where I watched it. I would gladly watch it again at any time. Um, and I don't feel like it's a movie that I could watch just kind of in the background because it's a tense thriller. Um, let's see here. Now this is interesting because Herman says I said the 3D was awesome. He didn't say it was great. Different opinions. You know, some people apparently did not like the movie. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Um, let's see here. So Hosenin says, I watch classic horror movies, George Romero zombie films, less gore, less gore, more imagination. Now, Romero films, I thought once you get past the very first one, like Dawn of the Night, once you get to Dawn and Day of the Dead, my recollection is that those were pretty gory. Um, I haven't watched of a lot of other Romero films, but yeah, in my mind, he always had a reputation for making like pretty gory films once you got past the first one. I don't know if Jim is still in earshot because he said the art is looking great. We got to head out for anniversary weekend. Thank you so much for doing this. Great seeing everybody. You and Leanne have a wonderful, happy anniversary. And yeah, I'm enjoying doing this. This is a fun piece. But yes, you guys, you crazy kids, go have some fun. Have a great weekend. Happy anniversary. Let's see here. Hosseini says, I saw Godzilla when I was a kid and loved it. Herman says that Matthew Broderick Godzilla, straight doo-doo. It was a mess, but the animated show of that Godzilla was pretty cool. Hosenin says, I was an avid movie watcher, but now I rarely watch movies. I guess I'm full. I watched enough for a lifetime. You know, it's interesting. That's a good point. For me, it's not necessarily that I am full or uninterested. It's a matter of I barely have time to draw and write when I want to. So I'm trying to always make time for that. When I'm not drawing or writing, I'm actually trying to read. I'm going back and forth between reading prose books and reading some comics. Like right now, I'm reading a Robert Kirkman comic book. It's actually one that he worked on with Todd McFarlane called Haunt, which is about a priest who becomes a spy wearing a ectoplasmic suit that is a vessel for the soul of his dead brother who was an actual spy. It's a very weird book, and it's very not Walking Dead. It's kind of an actiony, fun. Like I think if you're a fan of Invincible, it's more in that world, even though it's like supernatural, kind of violent crime horror. It's a very interesting mix. I'm enjoying that right now. But yeah, for me, there's a ton of things on TV that I want to watch right now and just don't have time. Andor just started, want to watch that. I watched the first 3 episodes of Daredevil, haven't had chance to finish that. I want to watch The Pit, that medical drama that's on HBO Max. That's supposed to be really good. We are watching The Last of Us. That's the one thing I'm staying up with, which, you know, I'm looking forward to a new episode tonight. For those who have not seen last week's episode, it was a big one. So I'll be curious to see what the blowback from last week's episode is this week. I knew it was coming. This way, I knew what was happening was going to come. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. But enjoying The Last of Us. We're watching Hacks. Really like Hacks. But there's it's not like I'm full of. I say this only in comparison to Hosenin saying that he's kind of full. Like he's kind of seen all the movies he needs to see. I have a whole like Google Doc of just movies that I want to see at some point, and I just throw them in there. But like, there's just so many things that come out. Nosferatu. I was gonna try and find time to watch the new Robert Eggers Nosferatu this weekend. Haven't had a chance. I've never seen his movie Witch. I want to watch that. The only movies we talked about this before about Robert Eggers, and I said the only movies of his that I've seen are The Northman and The Lighthouse, and they were both excellent. The Lighthouse is very, very weird, um, but very, very good. It's almost like a weird, sad, allegorical horror tale about madness and isolation. But point is that he's an interesting filmmaker, and it makes me want to see more of his films. And then again, like I said, as much as being a fan of David Cronenberg, I've heard very good things about Brandon Cronenberg, his son. I've heard very good things about his movies, and I want to watch all of those. And I know that Cronenberg's had a couple of recent films that he put out, like in the past, 10 years. I think he's had like 2 films that came out that I haven't seen. So there's so much stuff. And you can only have time for what you have time for. Let's see here. Dylan says the 1998 American Godzilla was my introduction to Godzilla, so I do love that movie for that reason, but I know that Godzilla is not well loved. That is an understatement. And Dylan said, Gravity made me sick. So it's funny, for me, the first-person shooters in video games, those make me sick. But, in movies, it doesn't seem to happen as much. But I know that there's also movies like, what was the J.J. Abrams monster flick? I can't remember the name of it, but they had a spin-off of it too. But it was the one where it was the alien invasion. It was all shot with like a handheld camcorder, and people were just getting so nauseous from how shaky the camera was in that. I have not seen that movie specifically because of the nausea and the motion sickness. So there's some movies. Gravity didn't have that effect, but I get the feeling that that J.J. Abrams movie would. People said the same thing about the second Bourne Identity movie, because I've only seen the very first one, and they say that once you like 3 and 4, actually people said were pretty good. Hosseini says, I love Bruce Lee movies when I was a kid. I do as well. I haven't seen that many. Really, like Enter the Dragon. I think I've probably seen like 3 Bruce Lee movies. I know he didn't do a ton, but that's another one. It'd be worth it just to walk my way through all of his body of work. And let's see, he also says reading books is a better habit. Not better than movies, but definitely better than spending time on social media. Yes, agreed. And Gary says, I'm flipped from you. I'm keeping up on Andor and waiting on Last of Us. Well, see, here's the thing, though. The reason why I'm waiting on Andor is because I love Rogue One. I know that literally Tony Gilroy has said the last shot of Andor leads into the first shot of Rogue One. He says we know how it ends. We know it, and we know what's going to happen with those characters. Last of Us. I mean, so the point is that I don't feel like I'm really worried about spoil. It's more about the journey of how we get there, and it'll be interesting to watch it when it unfolds. The Last of Us, it's going to be hard to not get spoiled because the game is so popular. And the only reason why I'm spoiled is not because I went in and wanted to know what was going to happen. Before they ever made a TV show, I read the Wikipedia entries of The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2. And speaking of ways to not kill time, but things to do, I had been meaning to watch all of the cinematic cuts, because on YouTube, people have stitched together cinematic cuts for The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 and just watched the cinematics for the whole series. So in reading about it, I knew a lot of what's coming. And there's going to be so many people that know what's happened with The Last of Us that I'm like, it literally, Gary, anytime someone mentions it, you're just going to have to just put your fingers in your ears and walk out of the room. Cause it's just, oh man. But I mean, I've heard great things about this season of Andor, and I'm looking forward to it. And yes, Gary's on point with the J.J. Abrams film Cloverfield. That's what I was trying to remember. The one that was the the handheld footage monster attack. Gary says, yeah, I played through Last of Us 2, so I know what I'm in for. Okay, see, here's the thing. I knew what was coming. It came in the second episode of this season. And that was the thing. I did not expect it. I thought that might be the finale of this season because they've said that they're going to break. I listened to the podcast for the TV show, and they said that they were planning to break The Last of Us 2 into 2 seasons. So I thought, all right, well, what's coming in my mind should be maybe the finale of season 2, and then the aftermath would be season 3. No, they went right into it. And a good cosign on David Eggers, or not David, Robert Eggers. He says, I love all the Eggers movies. Big fan. I'm looking forward to it. Listen, he did the same thing I did. He says, I didn't play Last of Us 2, but I didn't play Last of Us 2. I watched the cinematics. Well, like I said, I haven't watched them, but I was meaning to watch them. That's what I was thinking about doing. All right, guys. So we are all caught up on the chat here. So on that note, let me tell y'all that if you enjoy these live streams and would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, although we covered a lot of that in this stream, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's a standalone psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Or you can pick up my most recent project, Morningstar. It's a retelling of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. So you can check out both of those or all of those. And if you go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, there are book flip-through videos. Just scroll down. You'll see those. You can check out what's inside the books before you pick them up. All right, guys. Again, thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out. Paul's in the chat. Says, just got here. Sorry, life got me running. Man, see, now I'm just about to run out the door. I'm sorry to miss you, Paul. Always good to see you. And Hosseini says, Eye of the God seems fun. Oh, yeah, well, hopefully you have a chance to check it out. All right, guys, got to go. Again, thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate you. I love all the comments, conversation in the chat. That's it for now. Go be creative.